Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, college football fans across the nation and around the world. This is Tim May with yet another Tim May podcast. And man, have I got a co-pilot of co-pilots. Actually, he's a Beau pilot. Beau Bishop, welcome finally to the Tim May podcast, man. I've been wanting to have this for a while now, brother.
I mean, I've been hearing about this every Friday when you're on for, I don't know, like 8 years. And I was wondering if I was ever going to get an invite. So I'm honored and thrilled that I finally got in and passed the velvet ropes and I'm now on the cast.
I quit trusting the mail to deliver that invite, and I finally did it, via whatever we did it with, their text messaging. Yeah. But dude, the next several minutes, you know what we're going to be talking about.
Yeah.
The upheaval in major college sports, especially we're going to kind of center on football for the most part, just continues. And I want us to treat this like remember those moments we do those Average Joe shows, or I do wall to wall. And then you and I would go out in the hall and talk for another hour.
Yeah, I do.
At Channel 10, your beloved days at Channel 10, your cherished days at Channel 10. Just treat it like we're out in the hall, not in the studio. You know what I'm saying?
You got it.
Well, but keep the cursing down. I know you like to curse. He's one of the straight arrows I've met, ladies and gentlemen, Beau Bishop, 97.1 The Fan, extraordinary talk show host. He's endured many co-hosts now. Now you're just plucking co-hosts off the street, aren't you?
I just said to hell with it. I don't need them anymore. I'll roll solo, give those guys the nameless, faceless, give them a little more time, and I'll just run it. We'll just do it that way. I could have more guys go be grad coaches somewhere else. I was running
exactly. Now you plucked Austin Ward's going to be coming on, I'm sure, a lot, because you guys have hired him in an adjunct role. So we'll see where that goes. But of course, I've been doing this for a while now, and I totally enjoy the moments I'm on 97.1 The Fan. Including I'm getting to co-host again this week on the Buckeyes show a couple of times this week. Well, all you big talents take your vacations, your hard-earned vacations.
That's right.
Well, let's get right to the matter. We're wasting time here as usual. I'm getting that Georgia mud and I'm spinning my wheels. Beau, we're presiding over the greatest upheaval in major college sports. I think you agree with me on that. And then on top of that, let's just center on football at this point. It's stunning that USC and UCLA are going to be part of the Big Ten, but then when you step back, not stunning at all, right? Something was coming like this. Those two guys put their arms around each other and said, let's go sell ourselves, and we're going to knock on the Big Ten's door first. They did, and the Big Ten, of course, jumped at it because last year at this time, what were we talking about? Oklahoma and Texas going to the SEC. So just number one, what's your initial take to that? And number two, how feasible is it? And number three, you kind of saw it coming, didn't you?
Yeah. So is it, I guess where I am at with it right now is it is both. I'm really thrilled because of what I do for a living and where I do it. Right. Yeah. Continuing to do it in Columbus, Ohio, in a real mecca of the sport, and where the sport kind of revolves around where we are. And it's my favorite sport to cover, to watch. It has been my whole life. And that gets into the sadness part of it, Tim, because I grew up in Montana, and in my lifetime, Colorado won a national title. Yeah. Georgia Tech won a national title. BYU won a national title. Washington won a national title in my lifetime. Yeah. None of that's possible anymore. And part of the cool thing that I loved about college football was the regionalization of it. That, there were we had 1AA football where I grew up, but Colorado was touchable. I could touch Colorado, and that's amazing. Like, big time college football can happen in Denver. And then they would play other teams around. They played Nebraska, and they would play some California schools from time to time. They're in the Big 8 at that time. And I am sad in that sense that is now lost. The notion now that Southern California is in the Big 10 is absurd. And if you'd have told me 20 years ago, 5 years ago, that would be the case, I would have said, you're nuts. There's just no way. And so I have real mixed feelings about it. I've got so many friends and family who are on the West Coast who grew up on Pac-8, Pac-10, Pac-12 football and sports, and that's gone. I don't know if that league can last the summer. Yeah. So it's mixed, right? That side of it, the feasibility, and I'm sure we'll get into this at greater length. I don't know how you don't give those two schools dance partners out there. I don't think you can have them on an island. Those schools aren't Nebraska in terms of their proximity to talent. But Nebraska kind of felt like it was on an island. This is a whole nother island, out there.
When the Hawaiian Islands. But go ahead.
Yeah, it's just, to me, I don't even know how you do it in the non-revenue sports. We do everything through the prism of football. Yeah. I don't even know how you're going to do it. So I have to think that they're going to give them some dance partners out there. And the last part, should we have seen it coming? Yeah. I mean, when I thought the Big Ten dropped the ball with Texas and Oklahoma, like, to me, those would have been no-brainers a year and a half ago. If you believe the reporting that they had come to the Big Ten or let it be known, and the Big Ten said, I don't know how that conversation went, wasn't in the room, but those two schools would have been perfect in that they would have given Nebraska dance partners. But as soon as that happened, and I remember going on the air and saying, well, you got to go get the only brands left that are on that level are Notre Dame and USC. Those are the only ones left. So you got to figure out how to do that, however that makes sense. And so should we have seen it coming? I suppose, but it still doesn't make it any less weird that it did and that this is where we're at.
What makes it a little more feasible, in my opinion, is when you go to the West Coast, you're going to play both. I mean, I'm talking about the Olympic sports and probably basketball, both women's and men's basketball. You're going to play both of those teams on the same swing. I do believe that's what we're going to see. I'm talking about when you go west.
Yeah.
And same thing with the quote Olympic sports. They won't all be going out there every year, at the same time, as you will know. And, Ohio State might make one trip every 3 or 4 years out there to play either USC or UCLA in football, for example. But where it seems unfeasible is the other way around, is USC and UCLA every other game in the Big Ten is going to be a road game, except when
not up the road.
Huh?
Not up the road. It's
no,
not
up
the road.
Now, with that said, Oregon came in here and played a noon game and beat Ohio State last year. Yeah. So that's not unfeasible. But like you said, and when you read, the explanations from the UCLA and the USC presidents, I mean, they said they took that into account. We were talking to Gene last week and Christina M. Johnson, the president of Ohio State, just about that very thing. But, as I pointed out, the travel toughness is going to be more on those two schools than it is on Ohio. The Big Ten, the original 14 of the Big Ten.
Yeah, right. But let me ask you: did you?
But one last thing. The pandemic proved. Everybody's talking about academics and stuff. The pandemic proved that you don't have to have classrooms necessarily anymore. People don't have to have butts in seats anymore. You can definitely get academic work done sitting anywhere. You can probably still get it done in Kyiv if you're sitting in Kyiv right now, as long as there's not a rocket coming in. I mean, you can take classes anywhere now. So the academic part is not a real question mark for me. But like you said, after about 3 or 4 years of USC and UCLA coming east every other week, that's going to have to get old. You agree?
I do. And do you feel any of that? What I was saying, did you have any of that sadness? Like, did that hit you?
Here's what I have, Beau.
I don't know if that's the right word, but did you have any of those feelings?
I don't live in the past too much. I mean, as soon as Texas A&M joined the SEC, and then of course followed up by Texas and Oklahoma, Missouri's in the SEC. Are you kidding me? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As soon as that all happened, we all knew. You look around the country, and you go, where's the low-hanging fruit now? Where's the blue blood low-hanging fruit? Like you said, USC. Well, I'll throw UCLA in there just based on their basketball, bloodlines and a little bit of football, just ask Woody Hayes about UCLA's football team.
Right.
But then, I was going to just jump quickly to this. I mean, there's one blue blood left, right? In my opinion. I mean, that makes sense.
Yes.
And maybe you might add a team from the ACC if they're willing to dance, but it just really much as when I asked Gene about the other day, you being a Notre Dame alum, that's got to be what's next. Yeah. And all he said was, he's believed all along that Notre Dame should be in a conference, especially in this modern time. Yeah, you can pine for the old days, but the old days aren't coming back.
It's over.
I mean,
it's over.
We were headed. Gordon Gee said 25 years ago, he could foresee 2 20-team mega conferences down the road.
Yeah.
We're getting really damn close to that. And
we are
basically ruling the roost. But do you agree that Notre Dame could be almost happened 15, 20 years ago, if you remember correctly?
I do.
And their alums got all upset. because they want to maintain their independence in football. You know,
I think now if I were the Big Ten, this would be ultimatum time.
Yeah.
And I'm not so sure that this hasn't been communicated to them already.
Yeah.
But I would say it is right now or it's never. And we mean it. It's never. You're never getting this offer again. This is your one shot. If you want to join this thing, we'll do it right now. And the other thing I would say is, don't be surprised that if you say no to this, that our member schools won't play you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you think about historically, Notre Dame, obviously USC is a big one.
Yeah.
That's their rivalry. But you also have played consistently. You played Michigan a lot. For a lot of years, you played Michigan. When I was a kid growing up, the Notre Dame-Michigan game was a big circle the calendar game.
Yep.
Ohio State's played them from time to time. Michigan State, Purdue, like all of these schools have played them. Like if I were the Big Ten, I think you have all the cards. I don't think Notre Dame has any cards left at this point to play. This is the one league that they could be in that makes sense. I took big note when Gene said what he said. I took big note when Brady Quinn said what Brady Quinn said over the weekend, that maybe it's something we ought to look into. If I were the Big Ten, I'd be pretty heavy-handed. I would inevitably go to 20 because I really think it's important that USC and UCLA have two more teams out there so that everything isn't 2,000 miles east. I think it's important. I think that for their identity, I think they need that too. So whether that's Stanford and Oregon, I've seen those schools thrown around. I can't imagine, Tim, like Phil Knight not making sure Oregon's taken care of with his influence in the sport.
Yeah.
I just can't imagine that. Ultimatum Notre Dame, and then pick two more. Whoever you want it to be, get to 20, 10-team divisions, and away you go.
Yeah. I would think, you're going to laugh, but I would think Arizona State might make a play too. I mean, just might hold its hand up to see how it's, taken. Oregon's the most, from a travel standpoint, that's the toughest place to get to of the teams we're talking about. Because, they're nonstop flights to LA out of Columbus and, Chicago, Detroit, et cetera. It's easy. It's a lot easier to get there than it is to fly from here to Denver, connect, and go to Portland and then drive down or wherever to Eugene. Eugene. But I'm so mad that trip got canceled 2 years ago because
me too.
My buddy Snook and I were gonna go out there and spend like the week, man. And hang out,
play band and dunes.
We're gonna have a great time. I was gonna relive an Animal House, blah blah blah. But I digress.
Don't you think?
Back to what we're talking about, though. Do you get the sense it will be Notre Dame as one of the maybe next two or four?
I think it has to be. I don't know what else. What other option do they have where they can maximize their value? When you're talking about $100 million per team from a value standpoint, the ACC cannot give them that. The Big 12, it can't give them that. The SEC is never going to be a fit for them. So there's just no other place this is where they ought to be. Geographically, it's where they ought to be. Ideologically, it's where they ought to be. It makes all the sense in the world. And the other thing you got to remember with this, and I was talking to I can't remember the guy's name. He was a beat writer at Oklahoma. And I was talking to him after the Texas-Oklahoma thing. And I said, what led to this? And he goes, something that people aren't talking about is this a little bit. The OU fans didn't have that many great games that they wanted to see on campus, right? Because they play Texas and Dallas. So every other game, it's Baylor, it's West Virginia, it's Texas. Like they weren't getting a steady diet of stuff that entertained. Yeah. He's like, they were kind of fed up with this Big 12 schedule. So obviously, yes, the money is what led you to the SEC for sure. But there was also this notion of this schedule is not attractive to our fan base. We don't want to play this anymore. And for Notre Dame, if this is the one that provides the best of everything, it provides the most money and it provides an incredible schedule for them, and they could still play the military schools, Navy if they want to, whatever. And so I think those factors should be overwhelming for Notre Dame.
Sure.
And I really don't know. Don't you think? Like if you're the Big Ten right now, don't you make? And I'm not convinced again, Tim, that it hasn't already been said, but I would say right now or never.
Yeah. The Big Ten claims it's not in a hurry to add those next two, or those next four. We'll see. But it's funny, Beau, you just touched on it. Remember when we were out there for when Ohio State played? I think you were around then when Ohio State played at USC in 2009.
Yeah.
Remember Beanie got hurt.
Beanie Wells. Yeah.
Yeah. Todd Beckman, of course, but almost got killed in that game. And then Terrell Pryor started. My point was tickets for that game, if I remember correctly, were $75 a piece for the USC Ohio State game. The next week, if I remember correctly, because I wrote a little thing about this, they were hosting, I think it was Washington State, either Washington State or Oregon State.
Mm-hmm.
And the tickets for that game were $45 a piece.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
I do.
Mean, at the Coliseum.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always been, about that. It's always been that, like even in the Big Ten, you saw Ohio State not have capacity crowds half the time last year.
Yes.
But you're not going to have Ohio State playing USC and UCLA every year. You know what I mean? Either.
No.
But the possibility is there. And that's what we're talking about, right? I mean, it's just, I don't know. I just see it. You did not want to lose USC and UCLA to the Southeastern Conference. And people could say, well, that wasn't feasible either. I go, you and I both know Greg Sankey, he don't care. I mean,
he don't care.
He would have put that package together in a heartbeat and probably thrown Arizona and Arizona State in there just so they'd have two buddies out there. You're understand what I'm saying?
Without question.
Right? There's
no question. Yeah, he I'll tell you something. Yeah, he has been a step ahead on this. The SEC, I mean, people get sick of me talking about it, but they've been incredibly revolutionary in their approach to football for a while. They were the first to do a conference championship game. They in those early years, I think Roy Kramer, if I remember, was the SEC commissioner at those times when they launched the SEC title game.
Yeah.
And nobody wanted to carry it. Like nobody gave them any money for it. Like CBS just put it on.
Yeah.
And that loyalty is what led to them sticking with that CBS package for so long. And while package, everyone always said, well, that was the best deal in sports. You got the SEC game of the week at 3:30 for 20 years or 30 years or whatever. But here's what it did. And this was something that Sankey, I can't blanking on the guy before him, but then Kramer was the first guy. But what they understood was this is a television show that is going to be produced by CBS nationally every week at 3:30. And all of a sudden, if you were in Columbus, Ohio, Boulder, Colorado, Los Angeles, wherever you were at 3:30, if you're bouncing around, oh, what's the big SEC game? All of a sudden they became national brands.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the most regional of conferences.
Yeah.
The most regional. And all of a sudden that was a huge factor in their growth was that 3:30 CBS window. So would Sankey have taken SC and UCLA? Yeah, he would have. Yesterday, he would have taken them.
Yeah. That was
couldn't allow that to happen.
Yeah. That was a major salvo that I think helped usher major college sports into that next realm, into the modern realm, because then you had to follow. And Jim Delaney in Big Ten did that. Of course, Jim Delaney took it a step farther with the Big Ten Network. Nobody, I remember when they presented it to the editorial board, their idea, the editorial board at the Dispatch, I got to sit in on the meeting because I was an expert. and a lot of people left there shaking their head because you know what I mean. One man in there owned a TV and radio stations in Columbus, right?
Yeah.
And Jim Delaney, I remember him asking me how you think I did, and I said, I think you did really well, man. But I'm telling you, this is going to be a tough sell to the people, to the dyed-in-the-wool, traditionalists and blue bloods out there. And Gene brought it up the other day. That season opener, the first year when Ohio State was on the Big Ten Network, wasn't on every cable outlet in the state, and they heard hell from that. Yep. But now, it became the model. And then of course the SEC has followed. But the Pac-12 has always been way behind in that realm. And the money there, you cannot laugh at it anymore. You can't say we don't need it because it's the rich and the poor when it comes to Big Ten and SEC versus the Pac-12 of all places, and even the Big 12, as you well know. And and the great thing is Christina Johnson and Gene, but especially Christina Johnson, didn't shy away from that the other day about how the money is dry. Definitely money is the huge part. Fox is definitely, you got to know Fox is in the hen house here on this one, right?
There's no question. Real quick on Christina Johnson and Gene. I have, and you and I have talked about this for the longest time, probably as long as I've known you, we've talked about this. I have wanted Ohio State to be a damn bully, but they won't. They're such good partners. If you took a drink every time Gene talked about being a conference partner and all of that stuff, like they will walk that walk. Well, I think COVID broke that.
Yep.
I think COVID broke that, and Gene acknowledged that in his presser on Thursday, that they were talking about going rogue and going solo. And I think that they're driving this thing. And I think for the first, it feels like Ohio State is finally like, you know what? If you guys want to be worried about this stuff, fine. This is where the money is. It matters so much here. We are not going to allow this football program to lag behind. And Tim, people can laugh about it when I say this. In major college football, you know this. You're one bad hire. You're one bad hire from going down. Like for 40 years, Ohio State has made great hires. It's amazing, this run they've had. There hasn't been a bad apple in any of them in terms of the quality of the coach. But you're one. It's one bad hire. And go look at some of the Alabama teams after Stallings left.
I remind people of that all the time, man.
Yeah, it happens quick. No one's immune to it. So this keeps Ohio State in the mix in perpetuity. I mean, you're always going to be in the mix. And I think that Gene and Christina deserve a lot of credit for that. Yes, ESPN and Fox are running the whole thing. I mean, they're obviously running the game. I've been saying this for a few years on my show, and I think it feels like it hits with the audience when I'm talking about all this stuff. And it's this: they are making television shows. That's all sports is. It's television shows.
Let me interrupt you. I talked about this with you before too, and on your show. It bothered me at the time, but there was an athletic director, I can't remember who it was, in the Big Ten. I was just talking this like 20, 25 years ago, and he goes, yeah, we've got to provide inventory for ESPN and for ABC, et cetera. And just that word hit me wrong. You know what I mean? Because, but if you looked at it, that definitely is exactly what they're doing now. And both the networks and the Big Ten and SEC are benefiting greatly from it. We may not like all the kickoff times, et cetera, but wow, you can't knock that this has been a good marriage, and it's only going to get more lucrative. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, but it is. It's a television show. That's what it is. And with everything else in our world is on demand, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to wait. If there's a show you like let's say you like Yellowstone or whatever, you go on Paramount Plus and you get the app and you can download it and you watch the whole series one after another. They just keep stacking. Yeah. There's one thing that isn't DVRable and not on demand, and it's sports.
Yeah.
Sports happen at this time. I can't DVR it. I think most people can't, because I think it gets wrecked because you got people texting you about what happened. Like, there's no way I could DVR a big time college football game. It'd be wrecked for me within 10 minutes with buddies. Hey, did you see this? Did you see this? No chance. You have to watch it live. So that's the NFL has this. College football has this. The television show is the last thing that you can't DVR that's not on demand. And you can sell premium advertising for, premium sponsorships for. That's why all of these networks are throwing $1 billion at these entities, because they're locking in these television shows.
Yeah. And the thing about it is, you know what it is. It's reality TV, but you don't know how it's going to finish. That's what's great about sports. I mean, I'm up in Mid Ohio. I'm DVRing the Formula One race of this past weekend. I was up at Mid Ohio Sports Car Course the whole weekend, and I go home. When I get home, I fast forward through the qualifying and just get the last 2 minutes of each level, and then I fast forward through the race. And you know what I mean? It's like it's the best way to watch racing to a certain extent, but you don't know who's gonna. But of course, people ruined that for me both days, just like you were talking about.
Yeah.
The bottom line is, I wanted to segue. That was a good segue for me, because I caught up with Cade Stover.
Okay.
At Mid Ohio, because he was the grand marshal. He was the guy that got to say, "Drivers, start your engines," as he said. But I caught up with him and had a little conversation just about that, but also about this Ohio State football team. And let's just break right here and let me throw that in there, and then come back. We'll get your little bit of your take, and I'll throw another thing in that I talked to him about, just about the state of college football now. But let's get to that first, Beau.
Yep.
Cade Stover, how big over the top is this a moment for you? You grew up right down the road from Mid Ohio Sports Car Course. Here you are giving the command,
Man, this is really cool. I mean, I grew up 5 minutes away from here selling raffle tickets out front. So, I mean, I'm just tickled to death to be here.
You used to sell raffle tickets out front?
Yeah.
Give me some insight.
Yeah, so we used to come here as a football team or basketball team during the big races and just try and sell raffle tickets, raise money, like for shootouts, uniform, and stuff like that. I've never actually been back to a race. So, I mean, I'm pumped.
Have you ever been to a race here? I mean, did you used to come here and see races?
No, I mean, like I said, we used to sell raffle tickets out front every year.
And then go home?
And then, I mean, we'd sit out there until people come out, too, and try to sell them again. And then we never actually had tickets to the race.
Hey, what is it like thinking about you grew up there working your butt off on a farm, and today you're this sort of a hero here, a celebrity. at a big time event?
I don't know. I don't really look at it like that, I guess. But like, I mean, working on the farm, I mean, whenever you get to do something like this, it's always fun.
Yeah. Hey, last thing, what is the sense you have of this football team? As you guys are in the middle of summer, you got a little bit of a break.
Yeah.
What do you like about what you felt around, I guess, the workouts and stuff, about where you guys are headed?
It's the best football team I've been a part of since I've been here. And that says something because 2019 was a crazy team. 2020 was a national championship team. So I think this will be the closest and the best type of people we got in the locker room, along with all the talent. I mean, it's going to be, we're going to do something this year.
Yeah, you're one of those few guys that knows as much about the defense as you do the offense, right?
Yeah.
You like that tour, right?
I love it.
That you had, but now you're at home?
I'm home. I'm
at
good.
tight end?
Yeah, that's going to make me play the longest, hopefully, and I like it. And I mean, I'm just really excited this year, man. We got a good team. We got a bunch of good dudes.
Hey, oh, heck yeah. Hey, last thing. Let's see if you remember your script. What are you supposed to say when you get the microphone?
I was supposed to say, driver, start your engines, as far as I know. We're going to figure it out.
Yeah, I know most people probably fell asleep when you talk about the auto racing part, but I thought it was interesting. He grew up 5 minutes from Mid-Ohio and had never been to a race there until this past weekend when he was the grand marshal. That's pretty cool, isn't it?
That is. Yeah, that is. That's one of those things that once you go, then you see how cool it is, but you really have to go.
Yeah. Well, at least a few times, but I don't know if I want to fight that traffic every day. But but the other thing he talked about, Beau, he thinks this could be the best Ohio State football team he's been on coming up in 2022. And of course, he's going into his fourth year. But I think you agree with that. I definitely agree with that from what I'm seeing, especially with the Jim Knowles hire. I think this team is going places. We're going to talk about that a lot more, I'm sure, over the next 2 months. But when you hear a player talking that way, it kind of buoys it, doesn't it?
It does. 19 was pretty damn special.
That's what he said.
Yeah. I mean, that was probably the most, it's interesting. Like the most talented Buckeye teams don't win national titles.
Right.
It's kind of strange that way. But 19 is the best of this run, that I've seen. This one certainly has the makings. The Knowles piece is the whole piece, right? And I've asked you about him. We've talked about him off air and on air. I've talked to other people about him, and it all sounds great, but you got to see it, And the other thing is they need some kids, especially on the defensive side of the ball, to play to their stars a little bit. They need them to kind of play to the hype on the defensive front. I still have questions about where they are at linebacker. I don't know if they're good enough there. I don't know, in terms to win it all. But God, I mean, it's them and Bama. And here's the deal: if you have, this is the thing this is why you could pencil in them and Bama right now, and I think you and I both feel pretty good about it. Do you have a dude at quarterback? Because if you go look at the teams that have won national titles in the last 15, 20 years. Yep. They've got dudes. They got pros. It's rare. Stetson Bennett's a rare exception. And they had, 20 defensive guys drafted this year. I mean, you have to have that type of overwhelming talent. Plus, let's remember Bama's injuries.
Yeah.
At receiver. Like, you have to have that type of overwhelming talent on one side of the ball to overcome not having a dude at quarterback. And we've got a dude. So, I mean, it's that you're going to be in the mix because of him and all the offensive talent for sure. But I don't think it's a team without question, Mark. Do you?
No. Oh, no. I mean, no. First, you want to see this defense actually work. I'm talking about Ohio State. Number two, Jim Knowles coaches the linebackers. Dude, they've been, your boy James Laurinaitis. I mean, now on the Notre Dame staff. I mean, everybody could see the train wrecks that were going on at linebacker off and on throughout the last couple of years. Jim Knowles appears to have rectified that, in my opinion. But then on top of that, you've got guys that have played. I mean, still Chambers is not going to be switching from offense to defense. He's already on defense. You know what I mean?
Right.
Unlike last year. Tommy Eichenberg, Jim Knowles just thinks he has made huge strides. They've got some talent there. I'm not going to name everybody on the roster. But then a 4-2-5, you only need two of them,
Right.
And they feel like they've got talent at safety. That's really the key little meeting room right there, Perry Eliano with those safeties. We'll see how that comes along. But I'm telling you, there's some talent in that group. So it's more of them having a scheme that they believe in and then getting after it. And I think that's what you're going to see. Hey,
I mean, it was just disappointing to see them bullied. It's been a while. They were bullied by Michigan, bullied by Utah, bullied by Oregon. It was just weird. Physically. So they got to get over that. Now I got to see it. I got to see it.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, I talked to Cade also about just this upheaval that we've seen in college football in his time in college. And he had a couple of interesting things to say about that. Let's just get to that real quick.
Cade Stover, you're not going to be around probably in 2024, you think?
No, I will not.
Well, what is your thought? I mean, the big news that USC and UCLA are going to be in the Big Ten.
I mean, that's not something I would really ever expect, to be honest with you. I mean, that's a haul out there, and I hope they got cold climates to practice in, because they're going to come up here when it's cold. No, but I'm excited. It'd be cool, man. I mean, different varieties of life, different style of football coming over here and playing the Big Ten. It'd be fun.
You know, you've been in the midst of this. You've been in the midst of one of maybe the greatest change in college football history, from the transfer portal to the NIL, which all you guys have gotten to take advantage of, to now these conference changes, Oklahoma and Texas going to the Southeastern Conference. And is it crazy what you remember college football being like as a kid?
Man,
what it is now?
Even when we first got here, like 2019, before that was even a thing, I mean, it's just the way this has changed, to the fact that you got to go play with the big dogs, and now if you don't think you're there, you better go get them, because you're not going to get anybody to come play with you.
Yeah. Is it, in your opinion, you're playing college, is this a good thing, what's been going on?
I think the transfer portal is a great thing. I think because, coaches can move how they want. I've been through 7 different coaches since I've been here at Ohio State. So I think the players should be able to have that opportunity to do that too. I think the coach are going to do the same thing.
Yeah, it's funny, Beau, Cade mentioned the fact that, the thing that really stands out about him, obviously talking about USC and UCLA joining the Big Ten. Wow, who saw that coming, right?
Yeah.
But then again, maybe if you'd looked really hard, you did see something like that coming. But also the transfer portal, as he said, if coaches can do it, why can't players? And he looks at that as maybe the most important thing that's happened in college football over the last couple of years. And I said that on your show. I said on Paul Feinbaum's show that I always thought that this was a couple of years ago. Transfer portal was really going to change things. Then you lump it with NIL.
That's it, right? That's really been the unbelievable combination.
We haven't even seen it yet, man.
No, I know we haven't seen it. I mean, I'm blank. The kid from Pitt who transferred to USC and got the money, nobody wants me to, I hate even saying it out loud, but can you imagine after last season if CJ Stroud would have entered the transfer portal and just said, "What's the bid?" What's Texas A&M paying for him? $25 million. If a 6'7" quarterback who's never played in college is worth $8 to Tennessee, CJ's worth 25. I mean, that hasn't happened yet. There was a huge miscalculation in college sports about everyone was the captain on the Titanic.
Yeah.
And it was like, well, let's just keep eating our dinner and maybe this will all pass. Meantime, we're banging bells, we're spinning, we're turning off rotors, iceberg, straight ahead. Oh gosh, this is a fantastic tiramisu. It's coming. And then they didn't do, and then all of a sudden you hit it and it's like, well, now what? And that's what it feels like in college football. It's chaos. I love it because I love the content. But it's crazy. And I don't know that anybody thought all of this stuff would happen at the same time. And they certainly didn't calculate that both of these things would happen at basically the exact same time.
Yeah. I'm telling you, that free agency portion, though, people got a taste of it this year.
Yes.
Unless they figure the transfer portal thing out, it is coming big time. As I keep reminding people, too, about the NIL, it's law now. It's not an NCAA rule. I mean, NCAA totally missed the boat on that. As you said, and the band played on,
yes,
on the deck of the Titanic. Although I'm not sure this is the Titanic. It's more like
it is for the NCAA.
Ship. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Right. It is for the traditionalists, for the NCAA, the people who had the gatekeepers of the sport. This is just total freedom and capitalism for players. And I'm for all of it. I just wish there were some guardrails for it, Tim. And right now there aren't any. And I do think and I think honestly, the only way that they could come back from all of this would be probably collectively bargaining it and having unions and percentage of that's probably the only way that they're going to. All Saban was doing with the thing with Jimbo was saying, we got to have some control over this. That's it. It was about control. Collectively bargain is probably the only way that you're going to get it.
Well, you said a couple things there about, collective bargaining, but you can only do that with employees, right? Isn't that right?
That's
number
right.
One. And number two, dude, if you'd have had a ping pong match like Nick Saban and Jimbo Fisher had, Jimbo Fisher basically accused Nick Saban in essence of cheating over the course of his career.
Yes.
In recruiting. Can you imagine if that had happened in the Big Ten? ESPN would have parachuted reporters into Columbus and stuff.
Yeah.
Dude, they erased all that with this was just two good old boys venting, nothing to see here.
Yeah.
Even the reporters just let that kind of fly. We'll see if anybody's really falling. But I was stunned. I mean, stunned in a bad way that everybody just kind of wiped that off like it never happened.
No, yeah. And I think some of it is just like, well, it's kind of like I was talking with a friend this weekend about like, because the Tatgate stuff, and it's like, wait, they fired Tressel for that? That's what we like. Yeah. DeVere Posey lost 10 games for that. Yes. And I remember you and I complaining about it in the moment, and that's a whole nother podcast. But just from the standpoint of like, I think because it's all now legal, it's like, well, everything's forgiven, whatever has happened. And I'll be
wait, everything's forgiven if you didn't get caught.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. If it hasn't, like, I'm guessing Reggie Bush gets his Heisman back. I'm guessing those type of things. I mean, he should have never lost
Reggie Bush is on the College Hall of Fame ballot this year. I even voted for him because I said he was a great college football player.
Right.
Nobody doesn't have his Heisman. You know what I mean?
It's a joke.
Go ahead though.
No, but I think a lot of that stuff will retroactively be made right. And I will say this. I liked the cheating. I liked the stuff that was going on behind closed doors. I liked the whispers. It's one of the things that I loved about the sport. Some of my favorite 30 for 30s and some of my favorite sports documentaries, Pony Excess, the SMU stuff.
Yeah.
How great was that? Yeah. Who is the guy who was from Mississippi who went to Oklahoma? The best that never was. Marcus Dupree. I love that stuff about, the $1,000 handshakes and Trans Ams and driveways. Like, to me, it's all part of the fabric of this thing that I love more than anything. And I am a little sad that that's now over because I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember there was a tale told that Earl Bruce even flew down because Ohio State was trying to recruit Marcus Dupree even back then. And Earl I think flew into Jackson, and the assistant coach told him what was going on.
Yeah.
And Earl then turned around and caught the next flight back to Columbus. Because they had no shot. You know what I mean?
Right.
It was crazy. Hey, Beau Bishop, that's why I like talking to you in the hall, man. Too bad I limited this to 30 minutes. But, man, we're going to do this again if you have time, brother, one of these days.
My pleasure.
You be up for it?
I'm in. Time and place. I'm here for you, brother. You're
one of my favorite people of all time, ladies and gentlemen. The man from Montana. I would love to see Montana.
That's right. That's right. You need to do that. Make sure you do.
Hey, but until next week, ladies and gentlemen, for my co-pilot this week, Beau Bishop, this is Tim May. We will see you then.